What do you mean you're going to go look at that email? It's not an email. It's for everyone. And you saying that you haven't looked at that, but yet you're at the housing committee. This is how you do an exchange with a disingenuous, allegedly, well, she's disingenuous, okay? Fight me on that. Disingenuous, developer-centered, Ottawa biz-centered, defensive counselor whose sole objective is to protect the construction and development business interests of Canada, and that would be by association the mayor of Ottawa, because hey, that's where the big bucks are, and that's where all of the highfalutin, I just love to use that lady's terms from Rogers. If you could go to YouTube, it's just hilarious. From the Ottawa Board of Trade, the highfalutin. If you can, if I can use those terms, she represents the highfalutin people of Canada. That's where you go through the Ottawa Business Journal and maybe Invest Ottawa, because that's Mark Sutcliffe's baby, apparently. I don't know. And then you work on the Canada Food Cupboard, or you just donate a few dollars here and there, and you go and you take some photos at the Boys and Girls Club, get on the board, and bing, bam, boom, you're in somewhere as a director. If you're lucky, you're Kaylin McCluskey, director of pre-amalgamated Byward Market Business, BIA, and then swiftly, as soon as you're advocating for more police officers and what now is successfully a new cop shop, how ridiculous, then you get to be up with the big wigs, Mark Sutcliffe himself, the mayor, at the Ottawa Board of Trade. And who knows what's next for her after all the great work that she's done. So you better believe some of these people have their eyes set on that, because if Jenna Sutts can do it, anyone can do it, because she certainly left her ward high and dry. Enough about that. And I see Tim Tierney is really nodding his head so hard as soon as he gets to pass the buck over to the federal government. Well, please explain the economic statement for me, and explain the Affordable Housing Act. I would love to hear him do that sober.
Do you not have a suggestion for us at what we could do in the meantime? If they're going to have money in 2025, 26, then what do we do in the meantime? Could we not sort of front end that? Then when you get the funding, it'll cover off what we've paid, just to actually do something now.
If what I've heard is that some additional money is going to be allocated for capital towards housing, that's a huge help. Any money would be a help if we can focus on builds. And really, those were federal initiatives some time ago, or provincial wraparound supports. We always talk about housing first, but we need wraparound support. So again, as a city council, and the mayor's been strong on this, is advocating to the other levels of government, and certainly the task force has. We need builds. Builds, unfortunately, won't solve the immediate. So then we need apartments.
She's like, quick, how do I spin? This is not how it usually goes. People don't usually rebut me. How do I spin this? I'll probably just thank him for his work.
And you've heard some advocate, I know Katie has, for rent subs and other initiatives. It would be great if somehow we could find more units out there, other than the emergency temporary units that we're now finding to get through the winter months. We've got too many people of low acuity, low challenges staying in the shelter system. People who are ready to be housed. They need to move on.
What is it, Bernard Matra?
Those people with high drug issues, high mental health issues, we can watch them for now until they're ready to be moved on, or those who could fall through the cracks and end up at the last house on the block, as we like to call ourselves. But there's too many people staying in the shelter system, family shelters, individual shelters who just shouldn't be there. They're ready to be housed now with no supports, but there's no affordable housing. So how the city can address that, that's an interesting challenge.
And the
but I know
waiting
everyone in
lists
this
were
room is working
already
on that.
wild before the
We are. I mean,
crisis,
my thought is just about
which
how to do it.
Thank you, Kath McKenney, for also pushing so hard, and those who stood by Kath McKenney to actually establish and declare the housing or homelessness emergency against all odds. To be honest, that Watson Club is fierce, and now we have the Sutcliffe Sycophant Club, allegedly. Not
now and get paid back later. Do we have any idea how much the funding would actually be if it were to be given in 25?
How about you go and read the literature first instead of wasting everyone's time here, because you said you saw the email and you didn't look at it.
Specifically to
but you get paid a lot of money.
Or the cities or...
Well, again, it was a federal announcement as part of their big budgetary update that they were going to address the housing crisis, and that was followed by, so in 2025-26, and my point was, that's not going to help us now. That's at least a year out, and it seems the higher level crisis, and that was followed by, so in 2025-26, and my point was, that's not going to help us now. That's at least a year out, and it seems the higher level of the government's...
she had a better face.
Back later. Do we have any idea how much the funding would actually be if it were to be given in 25-26? And specifically to Ottawa Mission? Or the cities? Or
this is me.
Well, again, it was a federal announcement as part of their big budgetary update that they were going to address the housing crisis, and that was followed by, so in 2025-26, and my...
That's my face. That would be my face. Just like, how long do you want this meeting to go for? We know you didn't read it. You're being performative, and you sound dumb. Just stop while you're ahead.
Point was, that's not going to help us now. That's at least a year out, and it seems the higher level of the government's... I'm not going to try and get too political here, but often those announcements are deferred.
Let's focus on what...
And then sometimes the money doesn't even happen, or it comes in the form of some of those rapid housing initiatives that we saw, which put a lot of pressure on those who built to get things built quickly, and as you're finding out now, way above cost of the original funding envelope that came from the feds. Who has to pick that up? Well, I think we know who. So it'd be better to see some big initiatives. And I know Katie from the Alliance has been advocating for that for years. That'll certainly help our sector if we can start moving people into affordable housing. And many of them don't even need the wraparound supports right now. There's no affordable housing. There haven't been big builds. And somebody commented early on some of the zoning projects that are going through without affordable housing as part of the plan, without inclusionary zoning. So issues like that as a councillor, my thoughts, if you're asking my opinion, can be aware of and advocate for on some of these new builds that are coming. There's money coming apparently for developers and development from the federal budget. So maybe again, can we get a zoning or inclusionary zoning for affordable housing so we can get some people out of the shelter system who shouldn't be there?
Also, can I just say, Ottawa Salis definitely got funding for their shelter. If you ask me, it seems like a high barrier shelter, but what would I know? Maybe we need to go back to Stephanie Plant. Oops, she's not there. As she asked that question before to the delegate, even though she already went to go see Chitami, in Gatineau, not Ottawa, but Gatineau. And it's interesting. No, it's shocking to me that it's so easy for these so-called charities. They have a charity number, I'm sure. But if you look closer, to be declared a charity, they have mission statements. And something like Ottawa Salis, if they say they're going to do this, this, and this, and apparently, from what I heard from the delegate earlier, Ottawa is one of the only places in Ontario, or in the province, she said, yes, in Ontario, that has specific standards enforced for shelters, which I believe needs a hardcore fact check by several strong experts with up-to-date information in that, because YWCA Try program, Cornerstone, I don't think so. Not both locations. I can only speak to one location prior to the pandemic, when it would have been at its height. Ottawa Mission, which I don't know, is he talking on behalf of this delegate? Ottawa Mission, when I walked in there and asked questions, I know they do good work. I know there's people that do good work, but I'm talking about the executive directors, the boards and all that stuff, who, the CFOs, the people who handle the money and get to say where it goes to and how the campaign is run and blah, blah, blah. I don't believe there's enough scrutiny about these places that are getting money for the housing developments, affordable housing, or shelters like Ottawa Salis, YWCA Tri program, and that there's actually standards that that the quality is up to standard. First of all, with YWCA, I would say it's not even accessible. I would say that there's not even a place where you can get a drink of water or sit down. There definitely wasn't a place to sit down. There, when I went in several times, there wasn't a place to sit down. There wasn't a place to get water. Just very basic things. There's no way you could go in with a service dog animal. There's no way you could go with a service animal at Cornerstone. But yet, the one that this other previous delegate was talking about much earlier, when there was that exchange with Plants, Councillor Plants, she was talking about low barrier, based on the conversation with Don Iveson from Calgary, the mayor there, and saying, that they want to get people in there rather than, okay, you have to jump through all these hoops. Like, people could have their service animals, their dogs. How can you turn away service animal at YWCA? And let me just say, at YWCA, how long has there been one single, it's not even centralized, it's ultra centralized, meaning that when you go and apply there, it's up to one lady. If she doesn't like you, you're not getting in. If she doesn't like you, you're not getting shelter at that point. If something happens and she needs to put you off and whatever, then you have to depend on her. It's not like, oh, somebody's going to fill in for her, because at that time there was a high turnover rate. Don't get me started. I tried to tell Joel Harden about it, but no. I was very nearly homeless there, and that was a hard time. That was a hard time. Don't get me started. And then with Ottawa Salis, please, let's go through the list of what would make them a shelter. And it seems very high barrier. And also, let's just see what they've implemented, what they've promised. Why are we just handing out money, especially when they have all these leaks? Are you even accounting for where they're putting their money in first? What kind of programs? I know that personally, these people have at Ottawa Salis have denied and make sure that it's not mandatory for their staff to engage in certain training that would be specifically related to helping marginalized communities, especially newcomers. I know that in Cornerstone, there wasn't enough people who spoke French, let alone learn the names of the people there. But let's not get into that. I'm just saying due diligence would be nice, to make sure that the money that you're giving and that this money from the budget from this year and the last year and the previous year and the next year actually goes where it's supposed to go and not down the drain. But no, don't know what I'm talking about. But this delegate does. He's been around the block, let me just say. And Tim Tierney had made some really stupid comments earlier, which I'm gonna let fly. But I don't know what you're going through, dude. Let's just hope that you keep it at home, because you're nearing Rick Shirelli level, okay? Somebody get him some help. Maybe take a vacation. And then we can see the other dead weight step up. Glenn Gower, Clark Kelly, Stephanie Plant, who might actually take time to step away from her very isolated isolated, what's it called? Constituent office, which nobody could tell you where the constituent office is except for the handful of people that voted for her over Laura Shantz. And again, that was because they didn't want the Salvation Army. I've said too much, I digress. Also, Leaper is doing a great job moderating here. I think this is the most civilized I've seen. I don't want to say civilized, but patient-esque I've seen them, and you really get to see the personalities pop up and who are the problems. To me, the ones who are using passive aggressiveness and who are taking the time to over promote and over hobnob and I find it condescending, patronize, okay, patronize and suck up to some of these delegates like they did that that man who was talking about his sister and how she had tried to access mental health. This was on a different committee. Like, it's just bam, bam, bam. Like, how can you keep up? This lady shouldn't even be on so many committees. We haven't even looked at the Ottawa Police Services Board, which, man, there's a lot to say about that. But I digress. Let's go.
Thank you very much, Peter. Always.
I'm just tired of these places getting tax credits when they aren't even doing the bare minimum. How about you go and ask, what does a caseworker do at Ottawa Salis? You might be surprised. You might be pretty disappointed. But then again, if you're here, you already know how disappointing it is. I saw a tent today outside, and I couldn't even spend 5 minutes with my dog outside. I was wearing bundles. It's cold. This is serious, and people will die from cold, from the elements this year, from having their hope broken. And when you break people's spirit and hope, anyway, maybe Laura Dudas or Catherine Kitts will speak up about beautification, or I don't know, something like skating rinks one of these days. I really don't know where their priorities lie, except NIMBY crap.
Councillor Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you again, Peter.
And it would be really nice if you do not,
just
like,
as strong and just
if
as
you can
important.
just look at the
We
people
all
in the
recognize
eye
the crisis and
pay
you're on the
attention.
front lines. When you talked about the federal...
I do feel like Kavanaugh is consistent. That's all I can say. I don't want to be accused of like, oh, but she did this. I don't care. Be consistent.
funding for 2020.
I do find that they're
26,
consistent.
and I'm sorry to ask again. This is for in terms of like a shelter, or is this in terms of affordable housing?
It was in the federal budget for housing builds to go towards affordable housing builds and some of the development of other builds as well too. I was just expressing my disappointment that we as a city are crying out. Cities across this country, we're seeing the overflow, and it was just disappointing that an announcement that was made in the midst of the crisis was again one that's going to kick in a little over a year from now. That was my point. Leaving who to pick up the pieces? You're pretty strapped here. See, I think as a city, one of your challenges, and it's probably good for the taxpayers, is you don't get to run these big deficit budgets with all sorts of political promises. So it's a good thing, I think.
Thank you. No, I think that's important, and
Earth to
that's
Gower?
the thing. We're overwhelmed, just trying to find beds for people everywhere, and that includes families as well. We've just opened more transitional housing, et cetera. But what we really need is affordable housing, and we need it extremely quickly. And the federal government is just not recognizing the amount of people that are coming into our city that are directly related to being refugees or newcomers.
Or do they? I mean, it was only like, what? When is it? I have a paper. Oh, shoot. When was it? Where's that paper? I don't have a lot of crap back here. I just have a few things. It was on Prime Minister meeting with Zelensky. It wasn't too long ago. Nope, not that. No, I'll find it.
And it's something that we need to deal with. We want to make them productive citizens, and we can't do that having them in shelters and temporary housing, et cetera. We have to have homes for them, and we need their funding. I think that's the big issue. We don't want to have a jurisdiction fight with anyone, but clearly we need to do something to help them. I think it was a big surprise for people to find out how much the mission is taking on in terms of persons like who are just new to Canada. I don't think people realize that was happening, and I'm glad you brought that to light. And I hope that they're listening to what an impact it's having, and the domino effect of it's having on our entire system, and how much we need to get the affordable housing part done. I don't know if you have any further comments.
Well, thank you, Councillor Kavanagh. And yeah, we've always been a good player in the game here. Yesterday, I was talking about our operating costs for the food truck, that it was a pandemic response and we can't carry on. Our donors have always been good to us. 3/4 of our funding is from donors. That's how we start programs like the job training program, how we've gotten into some of these housing projects with the city. But our reserve is not what it was. And we're feeling the pinch like everyone else. We have a crisis reserve as we had for something like the pandemic. As it turned out, the federal government stepped in and the funding came through. But had that not, that's why we carry a reserve. But we're dipping into that reserve now to the tune of maybe by the end of this year, close to $1 million, just to carry on dealing with things like this refugee crisis, to keep that food truck on the road, going to communities, 35 communities in the city of Ottawa where people are living in poverty and need to be fed. So we're doing our part, but times are getting tight, and it's a shame that we're not seeing leadership from the other levels of government to alleviate things like the housing piece of this formula, which would help us all.
Thank you again, Peter, and I know how helpful that truck is, and in my ward, I've seen the smiles on people's faces when it comes, and how helpful it is. Thank you again.
I mean, it's not the first time that we've helped other jurisdictions. Let's just look back at that. Remember that? It's not the first time that we help other jurisdictions. Would be nice, have some allies there. But, yeah.
For everything.
Peter, thanks for joining us today. I don't see any other questions for you. As always, thank you for your intervention. Thank you for the work that you do. Denise Lepage is joining us.